Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. All right. Um, Thank you for joining the chat today. In this video, we're going to talk about how moving into luxuries is what causes the economy to fall into decline. Now, this is not something that I imagined. It's not something that I have come up with as far as some far off concept or theory. This is from Cantillon's observations from hundreds of years ago, right? So we can blame all kinds of political actions, we can blame all kinds of stuff out there, but when you find reasons described hundreds of years ago that fit exactly what we are experiencing today, then there's no point in reinventing the wheel, right? We can tell from the economic forces that are taking place. Now, I'm going to read this to you. This is coming from Cantillon's essay, right? Cantillon's essay on economic theory. This is chapter 8. I believe this is in part 2 of chapter 8 of part 2. Further reflections on the increase and decrease of money in the state. And it goes like this. Increase in the supply of money from a balance of trade eventually causes prices to rise. This in turn puts pressure on domestic producers and increases imports. The result is that a balance of trade is reduced and eventually is negative. This is Cantillon's price-specie flow mechanism, which demonstrates the reason for the tendencies for equilibrium in the international monetary flows. The balance of trade can result in economic power, but this also causes the economy to lapse into luxury and decline. Now, this is probably one of the most important things to understand about how the macroeconomic operations work, right? Because a lot of times when we look at situations that are taking place out there, like shipping all our good manufacturing jobs overseas, like how many times have you heard that? How many times do they want to blame liberal politics on this, or maybe conservative politics on this? Right? It's just like, however you want to look at it, it doesn't necessarily make sense that they caused this as much as they are responding to a particular situation. Now, again, when we look at what Cantillon was describing and we think about what's happening here in the United States, we used to be a manufacturing powerhouse. This country produced some of the world's greatest things, and we distributed those things to the rest of the world, right? Increase in the supply of money from a balance of trade eventually causes prices to rise. We were producing the world's greatest stuff. When we were sending that stuff out there to the world was sending us their... We would send stuff out there and we would see the money come back. This, in turn, raised our standard of living. When we raised our standard of living, we started moving into luxurious items. That moving into luxurious items is what caused the prices to rise and the foreign competition to come in. Increase in the supply of money from the balance of trade, right, eventually causes prices to rise. Exactly what we experience here in the United States. This in turn puts pressure on the domestic producers and increases imports. Exactly what we saw here in the United States. See, we can blame politicians, blame the bankers, blame all that stuff out there. That's fine. There's plenty of blame to go around. Here's economic forces that are described almost as if they were natural consequences, like gravity, right? The result is that the balance of trade is reduced and eventually is negative. That's right. Eventually, it comes to the point where you're importing more than you're exporting, very much like here in the United States. This is Cantillon's price-specie flow mechanism, which demonstrates the reason for the tendency for equilibrium in the international monetary flows. See, back in the early 70s, we severed ourselves from the gold standard. You know why? It's because there was going to be an equilibrium found. That means the redistribution of gold back out there to the rest of the world. We said no. Right? The balance of trade can result in economic power, but this also causes the economy to lapse into luxuries and decline. See, that was the problem. So we had all this world's manufacturing. We were producing the greatest stuff. We increased our standard of living, right? The balance of trade can result in economic power, which we were experiencing here in the United States, but it also caused the economy to lapse into luxuries and decline. Now, I think about that right there, just that very thing. And how many times I've come across stories now throughout the internet, through the mainstream media, just listening to other people talk about the economy. How many times have you heard about this? They're shipping our good manufacturing jobs overseas. Okay? Take a look at the example that I leave down in the description of this video. The two manufacturers of a particular item here in the United States is begging the administration, demanding the administration that they put 100% tariff on their competitor's product coming into the United States because they just can't compete. They can't do it. They can't compete against the cheaper form production that's out there. Totally 100% luxurious item. Now, if you think about this one particular item, I mean, this is the epitome of luxury. Right? And these people are begging the administration, we are on an existential threat. Like, we are going to fail. We are going to lose our company and be out of business if you do not stop the foreign competition from coming into this nation. What is that item? Golf cart. Right? If there is not an item out there that it just screams luxury, that would be it. Am I wrong? Like, it's not marketed to the poor. There is not a single poor person out there who's thinking, man, I can't wait for the dream of the day that I get a golf cart. Right? And in fact, if you think about it, even the idea of owning a golf cart means that you would have to actually be playing a fairly significant amount of golf. Like, if you're not a professional, then why in the hell would you own a golf cart? Unless it's just a complete luxury. You live on a golf course, right? Something of that nature. Or you're using it for some other reason that's not golfing. They don't build golf carts for the average person. Like, if they built golf carts for the average person, like they intended on building golf carts because people couldn't afford cars, so they would buy a golf cart to get around. Like, if that was the idea of selling golf carts, then they would be able to compete against the other Chinese manufacturers over there. But they don't build golf carts for the average poor person. They build golf carts for rich people. It's a completely 100% luxury item, and they are failing at it, and it's obvious why. Right? If you built your entire business model off of producing an item that was geared just to the luxurious rich, right? Your entire model, your entire business was built off of this item that is going to these people who have money. Okay? And then you find a foreign competitor who says, man, you have built something that is far more than it ever needed to be, and it can be done so much cheaper. Okay? Now you have to reinvent your entire system of what it is that you are doing in order to compete against this smaller, cheaper, well, it's not even smaller, it's probably the same size, this cheaper version of what it is that you were building. Right? See, this is, and then what are you going to do? 100% tariff on this thing? Like, you know, begging the administration that we're basically can't do it. We can't compete. We're not a profitable company against somebody else out there who is building it so much cheaper than we can. Oh, let's force the competitor out of the game in order for us to stay competitive here in the United States. This continuous government intervention. Like, if you had a system in which that the government was less involved in your life and you were prospering, tell me, wouldn't that be a better situation than ultimately you have to have the government involved in your life just to keep you from failing or dying? Like, is this the government that you want? Is this the system that you're looking for? Like, why is it that we would beg the administration to keep this golf cart company in existence? Like, why should taxpayer money, right, go to the ability to manufacture a luxurious item who is going to help the absolute elite rich and nobody else? Like, this is something, oh, I'm sorry, how many manufacturing jobs are involved in this, man? A couple hundred, maybe? Oh, we can at least save these jobs. I know. Let's do hundreds of billions of tax dollars to save a couple of $100. You know, I'm not saying that's how much it would cost, but who knows, right? See, this is what's funny about it, is that even if it's a tariff on this other company, it's just like, oh, no, 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 man, you don't understand. This is a tax that's going to them. They're being charged this, not the American people. Horrors. That product comes into the United States and gets purchased here. That is a tax on the American people, no matter how you look at it. All right? Tariffs are a tax. All right? All that stuff. Subsidies is a tax. Anything that government is involved with is a tax, and like it can't be any other way. All right, thank you very much for listening. Let's go in and see what we are at for people. We got 210 people watching. Thank you so much for hitting that like button with 37 likes. Deja Vu, member for 6 months. Thank you so much for continuing the membership to the channel. We'll find something to do for a members only video this week. All right, it's a luxurious item, but the same competition issues apply to everything we consume. It does, but what I guess I'm getting at is that this particular item itself is the epitome of luxury, right? It's not like, I mean, it's not as something as like even like a cell phone. At least like a cell phone is a useful item to everybody out there. Like anybody, even if you're a homeless person, could use a cell phone for something. Right? So even if the government was to subsidize cell phones, not saying like they did, but for the reasons of trying to keep the manufacturers here, but this is something that is actually a benefit or a useful item to like literally everybody in society. A golf cart is only like, it's not even a necessity. It's the only person who could ever possibly want this is somebody who doesn't want to walk around on a golf course, right? It's a 100% luxury item. Right, without any kind of real, like, I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there who use a golf cart for something other than golfing that is like a benefit to their life or something, like, just trying to be mobile or something of that reason. But that's not why golf carts are made. Golf carts are so that rich people with a lot of money don't have to walk around. Like they can drive where they go to, right? to the next hole. That's a luxury, 100%. Like no other way of looking at it. All right. Goonies didn't have golf cart, just bikes. That's right. All right. I love you. Oh, well, thanks, Brian. All right. Subsidies devalue the value of the repurchase with the dollar. Good morning. I can't stay, but I just wanted to smash the like button. Well, thank you so much, Harrison. Really appreciate you. Golf carts are better for the environment. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Right on, Harrison. All right. You just going up the holler, don't need to take the truck. Yeah. If the debt equity of the house were backed by precious metals held by the bank, wouldn't that mitigate the risk of the housing market crash? No, I think that if anything was backed by gold, you would create an immediate crash within the market because there's simply not enough gold to back all the transactions that are taking place. So if you were to revalue like the house to the gold, or you would have to increase the gold price or something, but the idea that there's like a gold transaction to the amount of houses or being able to do gold transactions for all the economy, there's just simply not enough gold out there in order to do that. And so by trading one commodity for another, you'll limit the amount of either one of those that are going to be able to expand into like operating into more expansion with the ability to do transactions, but that gold limits that ability to do that, right? This is where credit and debt, the elastic money supply, gives the capabilities of people to go out there, borrow money, build things into reality, and hopefully hold on to them. If they can't, then they fall away from the ownership of it, but the reality of the project still exists. This is where the rich come in and harvest the people, right? Like, it's better to understand it in that fashion. Like, if you can understand it almost like a gardening process, right? When you have dirt, bare land, nothing growing out there, when you plant seeds, that's like the lowering of interest rates, right? When you plant the seeds, by lowering interest rates and planting the seeds, what you will do is you will spark business growth, right? You'll get these new green shoots to take place. These businesses are going to start rising, and as they begin to rise, the economic activity begins to happen from that. When you have even more debt issuance, people will borrow that money to build things like businesses and houses and, all kinds of things, right? But not everybody is going to be able to continue to make the payment on those beautiful things that they had built, right? This is the garden coming to its harvest season. They lower the interest rates by they raise the interest rates. By raising the interest rates, the capability of the people who have borrowed the money to build this beautiful items or whatever it is that they have out there, they lose that ability to make that payment. Now the thing comes up into default, the item goes up for auction, for sale, and then the rich come in with their cash and buy that beautiful item, whether it was a house or a business or whatever it was that the borrowed money was used to build. They come in with the cash and pay that off. That's like the harvesting of the people from the efforts of putting out the seeds, which is the lowering of interest rates. Does all that kind of make sense? That's like the easiest way to kind of take it down to an analogy of like the cycle in which this happens. But ultimately, it's like the raising of interest rates is like the harvest season, right? People are supposed to go into default from this. The bad debt, like the malinvestments, the people who got loans who really shouldn't have, who bought houses when they couldn't afford them, all those things start to go into default, and then the people with like money and ability go in there and kind of clean up, during that time. And this is like, again, how the separation between the rich and the poor occur. All right. Agreed with the AIBS, just rebranded technology. So create a new hardware and software boom out of thin air. This is a scary time. Maybe. Alright. Money printer, bingo, printing bingo. Please hit the like button. Yeah, please do. Thank you. Are you watching what is happening with the U.S. Treasury yields and the Japanese yen right now? Looks a bit like we are in an inverted yield curve. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, I think as time goes on here, what we're going to find is that the Federal Reserve is not going to ease monetary policy. They're going to continue to tighten policy. As much as they put out the idea that they're going to ease interest rates or that there's an easing time coming, I don't believe that. I believe that the Federal Reserve is going to keep those interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time going into the future. Now, this is going to do something that's very interesting, and we're starting to see the effects of it now. And this golf cart story is one of the very telling evidence of this happening, and that the dollar is going to get stronger against all these other currencies around the world, and that is going to cause the imports coming into this country to get incredibly cheap, right? And this is a big worry. Like this literally is a big worry, these cheap products coming into the United States, because of the exact reason that these manufacturers here in the United States are saying. It was like, we can't compete against it. Like, nobody outside of the United States is going to buy our expensive golf cart. And because the dollar is growing so much stronger, look how cheap these golf carts are coming in from China. They build them cheap and our dollar is strong. So now we can get these cheap golf carts coming into the United States, which is going to destroy the domestic manufacturers of it. And it's like, this is the same story that gets told throughout many products that the United States is trying to compete with when it comes to the whole world manufacturing, facilities out there. It's just like, you can't do it. All right. Have you ever heard of the song Rich Man North of Richmond by Oliver Anthony? I feel like that song describes the pain from the Cantillon, Jesus, I can't even say it now. Cantillon effect. Thought you might enjoy it. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Rich Man North of Richmond. All right. Good one, Phil. All right. How do we fix that? You can't. That's the thing. This is the other thing that I think is probably best to understand, is that you can't fix this. Like, how do you fix it? Right? In order to fix the problem that we're seeing, is that the problem that has come from the rise of standard of living. Let me see how long this chapter is. This chapter might be too long to blast through it all. Let me see. Let me see if I can find like a spot in here that really kind of describes it fairly well. Let me just read through some of this, and you can kind of get an idea of what's happening here, right? We have seen that the quantity of money circulating in the state may be increased by working its mines, by subsidies from foreign powers, by immigration of foreign families, by the residence of ambassadors and travelers, but above all, by the regular and annual balance of trade. Now, this is really important, right? Producing and selling stuff out there to the rest of the world, the balance of trade. This is how you get the most money in. from supplying goods to foreigners and by receiving from them at least part in price in the gold and silver, just exactly like the United States was doing during the great, awesome manufacturing boom history of the 50s, 60s into the 70s. All right, however, the continuation of this commerce gradually introduces a great abundance of money and little by little increases consumption, right? So you think about it, as the people were enjoying this manufacturing and sending it out there to the world, what happened? We enjoyed our standard of living and it started to increase. Right? That single income could produce enough money for the entire household. This is before the United States even existed, right? Like this is how the economy functions. This is the economic forces, right? So very much like the United States was experiencing, right? When we were the manufacturing powerhouse, we enjoyed that increase in consumption. So the abundance of money, little by little, increases the consumption. Foreign products must be imported to meet this demand, and must be paid for by the reduction of annual balance of trade. What happened to the United States? We started importing a bunch of foreign production, right? Just, exactly like Cantillon was describing what happened. If you increase your manufacturing, you're a manufacturing powerhouse, you start bringing in a bunch of money, you increase your standard of living, you start buying the foreign production because it's cheaper, right? And that's exactly how he describes it. Foreign production must be imported to meet the demand and must be paid for in the reduction in the annual balance of trade. On the other hand, increased expenditures increase the cost of labor and the prices of manufactured goods. Right? So you think about it, our standard of living increased our pay, how much it costs for us to manufacture stuff. It often happens that some foreign countries try to set up the same kind of factories for themselves, the stuff that we are producing, which in case they will stop buying our production. Right? They will stop buying the production of the state in question. Although these newly established factories, manufacturers are not perfect at first, right? Cheap Chinese goods, whatever, it's crap stuff. Right? They reduce and even prevent the exporting of the goods from neighboring states to their own country. That's right, we're not going to export golf carts. Right? Not to China. China will export golf carts to us because they're cheaper for us, but we can't export to them. They're expensive. They ain't going to buy from us. For the neighboring states to their own country where they could be acquired for at a better price. In this manner, the state begins to lose some branches of its profitable trade, and many of its workmen and artisans will lose their jobs, will leave the state and find employment in foreign factories. Like they just bail out altogether. Right? Here in the United States, they can't really bail out because they have nowhere to go. And they just become unemployed. Right? In spite of this diminution of balance of trade, the custom of importing various products will continue. Right? Even though it's screwing you up and you're losing money and all this other stuff, it will continue. If the manufactured products of the state have great reputation and can be shipped to the distant countries at low cost, the state will maintain the advantage over the new foreign manufacturers for many years and will maintain a small balance of trade, or at least keep it even. If, however, some of the other maritime states tries to perfect the same articles and its navigation at the same time, it will, because of the cheapness of manufacturing, take away several branches of trade from the state in question. Right? They get better at distribution and they get better at manufacturing. You're cooked. You're done. Right? Consequently, the state will begin to lose its balance of trade and will be forced to send part of its money abroad every year in order to pay for its imports. That's what the United States was facing back in the 70s. They were going to fail, right? If they didn't sever themselves from the gold standard. This was written hundreds of years before that happened, right? Hundreds of years before it happened. Moreover, if the state in question could keep a balance of trade and its greater abundance of money, it is reasonable to suppose that this abundance will plunge many wealthy individuals into luxury. Even if you could keep the trade going, what's going to happen is that new money is going to come in and people are going to keep diving into luxuries. They will buy paintings, precious stones from abroad. Right? They'll take these luxuries and they'll buy this stuff, these luxury items from people outside of the United States. They will want silks and rare objects. And they set up such an example of luxuries in the state in spite of the advantage of ordinary trade. its money will flow abroad, right? So as they buy all this stuff, the money will fly over across, over to foreign lands, will flow abroad annually to pay for these luxuries. Right? So now you're exporting all your money. Right? This is what the United States was doing, right? They were exporting their money to pay for these luxuries. This will gradually impoverish the state and cause it to pass from great power to great weakness. And that's exactly what was going to happen in the 70s had we not severed that gold standard and go completely onto a fiat currency. Okay? It's because of that dive into luxuries. The people had raised their standard of living. They were enjoying the hard work, production, and savings from all the decades of being a manufacturing powerhouse, and that rising of standard of living started increasing the luxury purchases that started coming from the foreign producers, and it destroyed the manufacturing here in the United States. It's an economic force. It's not a political movement. Like you can blame politics all you want. There's plenty of blame to go around, and yeah, you can pinpoint all kinds of stuff. Right? And there's probably some pretty major big stuff that you can pinpoint, right? And say this was it, but dang it, if you don't find that it's the economic forces that are underlying that is causing the politics to react in the way they do. Right? There's nothing we can do to change this. This is human nature that is causing the dive into luxuries. People want to work hard and enjoy their production and savings. It's not unreasonable for people to do that. The problem with it is that it is the exact reason why we destroy the economy, or why the economies are destroyed. It's literally the time that you want to enjoy and raise your standard of living is the moment that you say, nah, I'm going to stay with my necessities and reinvest all my hard work and effort and everything to not enjoy it, but to reinvest it back into production and savings again. And that's the only way you can prevent this from this outcome from taking place. You just can't do it. Right? Nobody's going to do it. Hey, let's read on. When the state has arrived at its highest point of wealth, and I always assume that the competitive wealth of the state consists mainly in their respective quantities of money, it will inevitably fall back into poverty by the ordinary course of things. Right? The ordinary course of things. We should have done that back in the 70s. Not saying, I'm not suggesting this. This is another thing. I'm not suggesting this. As I'm not suggesting anything as far as what we should do or strategy, what it could have been, none of that stuff. I'm trying to describe exactly what it is that was taking place, right? And what should have, right, the inevitable fall back into poverty is the ordinary course of things, but we didn't go down the ordinary course of things. We severed ourselves from the gold standard and went into a completely 100% fiat currency, with treasuries being the safe and liquid asset instead of gold. The too great of abundance of money, which gives power to the state so long as it lasts, throws them back imperceptibly, I can't talk, but naturally into poverty. Thus, it would seem that when the state expands by trade, the abundance of money raises the price of land and labor, the prince or legislators ought to withdraw money from circulation, keep it for emergencies, and try to slow down its circulation by every means. Accept compulsion in bad faith to prevent its goods from becoming too expensive and avoid the drawbacks of luxury. No, that doesn't happen, right? This is what Cantillon's suggestion was, is that they should hold that money back, keep people from moving into luxuries, do all that stuff, right? To keep it from falling into luxuries. You think about that. What Cantillon is suggesting and what you would have to have within your government is a socialistic, communistic government to prevent this from taking place. That's scary to think about, right? Otherwise, this is going to continue. The separation between the rich and the poor, the new money coming in. If you don't have it, you're going to fall into poverty. It explains it very well here. However, it is not easy to perceive the opportune time for this, or to know when money has become more abundant than it ought to be for the good and preservation of the advantages of the state. Therefore, princes and heads of republics do not concern themselves much with this sort of knowledge. They don't even care. They even know, right? Like the stuff that we have already talked about on this video, most of these politicians probably have no clue about it. They would be like, what in the world, right? But that's history, man. They do not concern themselves with this sort of knowledge and strive only to make the use of the abundance of their revenues to extend their power and to insult other countries in the most frivolous of pretexts. all things considered, working to perpetuate the glory of their reigns and administrations and to leaving monuments of their power and wealth is perhaps the best that they can do because, according to the natural course of humanity, the state must collapse on its own. The government, the people who are in charge here, they only accelerate its fall by a little. You see, this is going to happen. No doubt, like they didn't do it. This is going to happen. Nonetheless, it seems that they should try to make the power last during the time of their own administrations. Right? Okay, well, maybe that is what they're trying to do, is keep this thing lasting, right? Which continues to separate the rich from the poor. Few years are needed to raise an abundance to the highest point in the state. However, fewer are needed to bring it into poverty for the lack of commerce and manufacturing. From the lack of commerce and manufacturing. Without speaking of its rise and fall of the Venice Republic, Hanseatic cities, Flanders and Brabant, I guess all these places, the Dutch Republic, who have succeeded each other in profitable branches of trade. One may say that France's power has only been on the rise from 1646, when factories were established to produce clothing which had previously been imported. In 1684, when the number of Protestant entrepreneurs and artisans were driven out of France, the kingdom has done nothing but recede since to this date. Right? It's like, once you understand this stuff, once you see it in this fashion, once you recognize it and you can tell how it is, like you see examples of it throughout history. You can even find it within like your individual self, right? Like maybe some of the decisions that you have made. I know me personally, I bought a newer vehicle back in the day, and that newer vehicle, that move into luxuries was very impactful to my financial stability going into the future. And I ended up like going into foreclosure on a house and all kinds of stuff. And I feel that if I hadn't purchased that vehicle, maybe things had been a little bit easier to deal with, except that I had this expensive payment to deal with, right? This luxurious item. You can see it as an individual, and you can see it all the way up to, these foreign nations here. All right. Hey, Brody, what's happening? I'm not following your message, Linda. Oh. I think everyone can eat. It's possible. Banking is almost more important than having a powerful military. Power is the dollar, and Bitcoin will allow it to stay around a lot longer. That's why Trump likes it. If they don't lose the dollar, they don't lose the power. Yeah. What you think where the stock market is going? I don't really answer. I don't know about stuff like that. Like, I mean, I would know more about where I think lumber is going as opposed to the entire stock market. All right, back in the day when you would take a kingdom, you would probably establish a church. Now you establish a bank, in with new gods and out with the old. All right. The human part of eating poop is we need to eat. The tribal part is the poop. Huh. Okay. Central bank digital currency. Yeah. Nicole M. In Exodus, the church and banks work together. When will they introduce central bank digital currencies? I think that one is going to be a very slow process. I mean, a lot of people are waiting for this moment that they say, okay, we got this announcement. Here are the digital currency, central bank digital currency, Fed coin, or something of that nature. And I think a lot of people are anticipating this certain program to come out, right? And then all of a sudden people are going to be using it. I don't find it going down that road. Like, I don't see the central bank digital currency for the United States being that like of China with a actual central bank digital currency, like its own program. What I see, on the other hand, is something very different, because from the Fed statements themselves, from some of the things that I have read, what they are more looking at and what they are pushing for is regulations and like transparency into stable coins. Now, if you think about this, stable coins are already in use. Like, people are using them. They are building their infrastructure, they're building the programs, they're doing all the things, right? So since a stable coin is basically backed by dollars or very close to dollars, like maybe short-term treasury bonds or money market funds or something of that nature, something that could be somewhat considered, wow, there's a huge eagle right there. That'd be cool if he landed in that tree. I'd go show you, but it doesn't look like it. Anyway, so when we think about, like, having this stable coin in a regulated market within the stable coins, like, you can say, hey, we know the banks, we know how this stuff is going, we know the know your customer kind of aspect of things, and the stable coins are regulated to do that, then any monetary policy that is conducted within the dollar itself would automatically transfer right through into those stable coins. The government, the Fed, they don't have to do anything. Like, they can just sit back and let the economy basically take care of business itself. Let the industry figure it all out, work out all the bugs, work out all the details, all the stuff that needs to be done. They could just sit there and watch it happen. And so long as the monetary policy of the dollar is being transferred into that stable coin, it doesn't matter if it's a stable coin or if it's cash or if it's anything else. The monetary policy still is, held within the Federal Reserve System itself, and they didn't produce anything out there to be, considered like a Fed coin or anything like that. It's just the stable coin, and it's the dollar backing it. I think this is a brilliant idea of the Federal Reserve to do it in this fashion, and the reason is that if you think about it, like, the dollar itself is the Fed's liability, meaning that they have that out there as a liability, but sitting on their balance sheet is an asset. Right? So, like, to us, it's the opposite way. Like, we look at the dollars as the asset, right? But it's not the asset to the bank. The dollar is the liability. They need that back. So now, if you are a bank, right, that is issuing out these liabilities out there, and you have assets that you are purchasing in order to get that liability out, right? So you got to buy treasuries, you got to buy mortgage-backed securities, you got to buy stuff in order to get the dollars out there into the system. But the thing that you're buying the most of is destroying the government that is set up to handle this banking system, right? So here you have this private banking system that is there essentially to provide the currency for a government system that's out there, and they buy into the government debt, but buying into that government debt is destroying the capabilities of the government itself to exist. Then that means they need to come up with something else to put on their balance sheet. And this is where I think the stable coins are absolutely brilliant, because if you can get people into the stable coins and then remove cash out of the system, now people are forced into this, like, locked in stable coin type of currency with no real way of getting out of it. Now you have a stable coin that is being backed by a dollar, but now the dollar has a backing to it too. It's the assets of the Federal Reserve. And now we typically look at that as being the treasuries, the mortgage-backed securities, maybe some gold, SDRs, something like that. But by Ben Bernanke's speech given way back in early 2002, he said in that speech that if the Federal Reserve ran out of things to purchase, that they could move into the debt of foreign nations. Now, this is so mind-blowing to wrap your head around, but this is really a path in which that it could take. Right, is that everybody could be moved into stable coins, remove the cash out of the system, right? It could take a while for this to take place, but it can happen, right? Now people are stuck in a digital currency of stable coins, believing that those stable coins are a dollar, right? Which they would be. They'd be backed by the dollar. However, the dollar itself, being the liability of the Federal Reserve, has its own balance sheet that is backing that liability with its assets, and those assets in turn could be that of foreign debt. Now the dollars are being backed by foreign debt out there. That is now, holy crap, think about the menu of opportunity to purchase things from all over the globe to produce an unreasonable amount of dollars that doesn't necessarily put pressure on the United States to continue to go into debt. You see what's happening here? Like, this is a very real way of sneaking in a world reserve currency through the dollar itself, the stable coins, and it's not even backed by the US government, but backed by foreign treasuries or essentially the foreign sovereign debts, which would be similar to the US Treasury. Right? And now this is what a US dollar is backed by. So the Federal Reserve note is no longer a US backed debt, right, by US treasuries. It's backed by foreign debt out there or something. And how would that look? And how much money could be printed then? And if you're stuck in this system, you can't even get out because it's all part of the digital currencies. Now you may not even be able to, find your way out of that system at all because you're locked into the digital beast. Right? All right, guys, I got to go. That was fun, wasn't it? All right. I slapped that like button like it owes me money. Right on. Well, thank you very much, everybody. We got 40 people watching with 123 likes. Please go hit that like button. The YouTube algorithm loves it when I have a bunch of likes on the video. When it gets uploaded, they grab the video, they spread it around for more people to join in. YouTube, or the Uneducated Economist, gets a bigger YouTube channel where we spread more of this information around. And, we try to figure out what it is that we need to do for ourselves so that we can best position ourselves, and this is the way we do it. So thank you very much for being here. Links are down in the description. Uneducated Economist. Oh, one more thing. Thank you very much for everybody who has been buying the essay off of the Amazon affiliate link. I actually got, here, let me cover up most of this here. Alright, so I got my first Amazon affiliate check. Right, so that's the first one from everybody buying into the Cantillon essay by following that Amazon affiliate link. Now, you don't have to buy the essay. You can go get it for free at the Mises Institute. So you just type in Cantillon essay on economic theory. It should pop right up. However, if you do happen to click on the Amazon affiliate link, anything you put in your cart for the next 24 hours, I will also get a commission on that. So you don't have to buy the essay. Just go buy whatever you want from Amazon. Just follow that link down in the description of this video first, and that way the Uneducated Economist will get a little commission off of it, and I'll get some more of these checks, right? Which would be cool. Thank you very much, Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.